It's Q&A week. You have questions, I have answers. Boy, do you have a lot of questions. I'm gonna get right into it because I don't want this to be a 2-hour video. I don't think I have the voice for it, but I'm thrilled with the array of questions, the ones that I selected. I was looking for repetition in the ask, and so I think I hit on a bunch of things that you guys are wondering about. And I'm going to start with the first question. How do you maintain your weight, and how do you manage your weight during vacations and special events? Okay, as a woman going through menopause, let me just say maintaining weight is a very loose and fluid term, because that could mean within a range of 5 pounds on a good day if the wind is blowing from the south. How do I maintain it? I try to eat a plant-based diet for the most part with lean protein. I try to stick to the perimeter of the grocery store, lots of vegetables, some fruit, meat, like I said, staying away from the processed foods, staying away from the whites, the sugar, the flour, minimal dairy, limiting alcohol, things like that. So usually how it works is a month before a vacation, I'm in the zone, right? I'm doing everything that I need to do that I know is healthy for me. I've upped my exercise game, and I could probably drop a few pounds, you know, maybe 3 to 4 before vacation. But this is life's cruel and unusual joke, because after 1 week on vacation, all that weight is back and then some. So I don't know why we women have to go through that, but I think it is to test our strength and our wherewithal. But that's how it works. Okay, question number 2. Is there any self-help or recommendations of books or a book that may have helped you along the way or changed your life? If so, would you kindly share? Yes, there have been some books that were pivotal for me in my early life and in my recent life. Early on, 2 books that I read that I really enjoyed, that got me thinking sort of on a bigger, broader scale about philosophy, psychology, and things like that. Ayn Rand, The Fountainhead, was a book that I read in my 20s that absolutely fascinated me. Another one is Nathaniel Branden, The Psychology of Self-Esteem. You're going to see a bit of a theme here as we go on. In my 30s, I got this book, Suzanne Somers' Breakthrough, and it was all about hormones, bioidentical, thyroid problems, sleep, basically a health and wellness book. This was written during her journey with breast cancer, and I really commend her on the enormous amount of research that she did on this book. It was very eye-opening for me in many areas. And then the other book that I loved so much was Joel Osteen's first book, Your Best Life Now. So there's a mix, and these books actually tell a story of who I am, a mix of faith, health, wellness, psychology, philosophy. These are the types of books that speak to me. So when you ask about big books that were impactful, those definitely are it. Next up, what do you do for the under eye area? Injections, serum, makeup, etc. Lots of under eye questions, wrinkle questions, non-wrinkle questions, and things like that. Now, I will tell you that I have had Botox under my eye area since my late 30s. A dear friend of mine who you've seen on this channel, Dr. Fred Aguilar, does my Botox. I started going when I was in my 30s because I had very pronounced 11s right here in my forehead, to the point where I looked like I was stressed and frustrated all the time. So that was my initial reason for going in for Botox at such an early age. And then we started to move it a little bit up the forehead conservatively and around the eye conservatively. It's very important to have movement and motion. That frozen look, is just not for me. So he told me recently, he said, the reason why you don't have a lot of lines around your eyes is because of the Botox that was started that early. It was sort of a preemptive strike. When you take that and combine it with the most recent skincare video that I showed you, which combines the retin A and the glycolic acid mixed in with a moisturizer, the retin A part I do carry up under the eye. Retin A is known for fine lines and wrinkles. Those 2 things have been profoundly impactful in my under eye area. Now, I have done, maybe twice now, I have done filler under the eye in this area. And I don't do it often because I find that if I can actually get a good night's sleep consistently, I don't need filler. But I've been through periods and pockets in my life where sleep has just been a precious commodity that apparently wasn't mine to have. So I needed to do that to get rid of that sallow and sunken look under the eye, and it did help. a lot. So there are a lot of options out there depending on what your need or desire might be. And it's a personal journey and walk. Some women let those smile lines come through and see it as a reflection of their happy life. And I think whatever you choose to do is great because, like I said, it's a personal journey. And we're going to be talking about sleep a little bit later too. The next question is, you said you're growing your hair out. What inspired your look? I've enjoyed looking at all your different hairstyles on Pinterest. What inspires my look? The same thing that inspires your look. Sometimes you see something or somebody and you say, I want that. The same thing happens to me, and I just love change. As you know, I'm a big chameleon. Lord knows you've seen probably about 100 different hairstyles since I started this channel in 2014. What can I tell you? I see something and I think, yeah, that's it. That's what I want. And I go and I do it. I'm pretty fearless when it comes to hair. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of bangs with bobs, and so that has inspired me, and I'm working to let it grow. My goal is to maybe get it here if I can make it. We'll see. Usually something happens that prevents me from getting to my end destination, but that's what I'm aiming for. But I love the creativity of different hairstyles, and I'm grateful that I do change it up a lot because I think I've been able to show you different ways to style different lengths, which has been very helpful and advantageous on this channel. But yeah, I'm inspired by the same things you are, just seeing a woman with a great cut and thinking, okay, I need that now. Or yesterday. So there you go. Microblading, yay or nay? Yay! Microblading, the brows. You've seen that on this channel. What a wonderful thing it's been for me. I can't say enough great stuff about microblading and Connie Pearson, who did these. And when I don't wear makeup, I actually have eyebrows. I have a frame for these eyes. So I've been a big fan, and I've had lots of touch-ups, probably about 3, maybe 4 along the way. I do touch up about every year now and just do a tiny bit of fill-in if it fades, but that's about it. When you're feeling uninspired, what do you do to get motivated and back in the groove? Or does this ever happen to you? Sure it does. I'm human. There are some days I don't feel inspired to do much of anything. And if I find that I allow that pattern to set in, you get farther and farther away from the things that actually make you happy. What makes you happy is effort. Effort toward anything. Effort toward work, effort toward marriage, family, health, wellness. Anything good in life takes effort. And effort can be exhausting, especially if you're having to put it in so many different areas of your life. So it's understandable why we need to kind of take a break, kick back, and not do anything. But that shouldn't be a permanent state. Sometimes it's needed to reflect, to reprioritize, and to be just a little bit lazy, to be a slug in your house and hang out in bed for a while. There's nothing wrong with that. But if it's starting to hamper and get in the way of moving you forward in life and being a better version of you, a healthier version, a more productive version, then it's not doing you any good. And there comes a point where you've got to push and get yourself out of that area, out of that unmotivated zone, and start doing the things that bring you back to happy, or trying new things. And it puts you in an uncomfortable place. It puts you maybe in a tired or a fatigued place. But the things that eventually fuel us give us energy. And so what can seem as an overload of output in the beginning can actually turn into something that gives you energy that you need to sustain and thrive. So always keep your mind focused on the prize, focused on the end game, doing things that are healthy and good for you, for your relationships, your career, your family, your kids, all of that. Effort is key. Nothing great happens in life without it. My next question is heavy topic, I know, but if you have any experience with divorce. I'm 38 with 2 beautiful children and starting over, overwhelmed and lost. Heavy, I know. Yes, divorce is heavy. I've been through it, and it feels like a punch to the gut, to the point where you can't breathe almost. You know, some divorces are easier than others, but it's still painful. It's still a loss. And then when there are children involved, your heart breaks and bleeds for them and their transition. So my only suggestion would be to prioritize your children and help them in this journey. Be open with them. talk with them. There are many, many books for young children about divorce to help them understand the process, to help them heal as well, and to see things in a healthy way. So I encourage you to look for those. I encourage you to seek therapy if it's something that you need. It's very important to talk to an outside objective ear and voice, just to help guide us and to make us feel like we're heading in the right direction. Also just validate our feelings. Sometimes we just need to talk and get things off of our chest, and that's important to have. Friends and family can't always be objective, so while we do rely on them during these times, if you need a third party to just hear you and maybe offer some sound and sage wisdom, I would encourage you to seek it. And most importantly, do not beat yourself up. Do not punish yourself. Things happen for a reason, and you have to move forward. You have to do it for yourself. You have to do it for your children. So take one day at a time, one step at a time. You will get through it. You will find the other side, and it is just a journey. No one ever said life was going to be easy and a straight road. We've got right turns and left turns and bends and twists, and really what defines us is how we handle those difficult situations. So I'm with you, and I'm thinking about you and praying for you, and I wish you well through this journey. I know it's tough. My next question is, what was your upbringing like, and do you think it played an essential role in who you are, your drive, your motivation, and confidence to do what you do? How did you learn to handle criticism and negative feedback or publicity? These two actually go hand in hand. I'm grateful for my upbringing. You met my mother in the last video that I did, the Mother's Day makeover, and there was a lot of banter between the two of us, and she talked a lot about raising me and the value of self-esteem. And I am so grateful that my parents place such a high value and a high commodity on that, because that is essentially the motor of the car. It's the engine that drives it. And so having a healthy self-esteem really allows you to handle a lot of things that come in your life later on. So I was raised in a very free and open environment. And when I say that, I was not henpecked, I wasn't criticized, I wasn't told to do certain things. I was allowed to set my course within certain parameters, obviously. It wasn't a free-for-all, but I was allowed to be very creative. I was allowed to be an outspoken voice in the family without being told, you can't say that, or there's no place for you here. I was a very creative writer early on. I would write a lot of poetry and stories, and I would write, writers are often most fueled when they're angry. So my greatest works of art happened when I was really ticked off as a kid, and I would write about my awful family and my horrible parents and the torturous things they were doing to me. I mean, you would have thought that I was just brought up in the most dysfunctional home ever. But in fact, it was my cathartic outlet to let go, and my parents allowed that expression. I would write my notes, my letters, and I'd hand it to them and storm off. And I'm sure they chuckled behind the scenes and saved everyone. But that was important for me to develop my sense of self and my sense of value. And my parents were very open. I could discuss anything with them. Nothing was off limits. My intellectual side was very stimulated. We often talked at dinner about politics and philosophy. It was a very great environment, and all of my friends used to love to hang out at my house for that reason. My mom was kind of the den mom. I mean, can you not see that, right? So this now parlays into the second part of that question, handling criticism and negative feedback. Of course, I chose a profession where I would be inundated with criticism and negative feedback. It is just the nature of a woman on broadcast television. It doesn't matter what you say or what you do. People will come at you about your looks, about your wardrobe, about your makeup, about your body, about everything and anything, and everybody's a critic and everybody's a judge. So my take on that is, I just don't let other people's opinions affect how I see and view myself. It doesn't change my self-worth, my self-value. If anything, I feel sorry for people who do that. I personally could not imagine saying anything rude or negative to anybody. I would feel awful in my own skin if I did that. So I think about these people who so freely spit the vitriol, and I think, man, you know, they've got to feel pretty awful about themselves. So my only encouragement here is, you know, for those people who do that, to stop looking outward, but start looking inward and deal with what it is that makes you do that. And for the rest of us who are exposed to it, it's got to be water off a duck's back. It cannot permeate, it cannot penetrate, and it cannot affect who you are as a person and what you think about yourself. So you become a turtle with a very hard shell. But if that's what you have to do, then that's what you have to do. Okay, if you need to wear a dress, since literally no one wears pantyhose anymore, how do you cover imperfections or marks on your legs? Yes, you know, pantyhose, I guess, went out in the 70s and 80s, and the bare leg is it. Period. Although every once in a while I will see a very sheer black pantyhose or maybe a little fishnet or something just to kind of mix it up. But for the most part, it's the sheer leg. And because of that, there are so many products out on the market to mimic pantyhose. Sally Hansen has a great one. It's a leg spray, and you spray it on and you rub it, and it gives you an all over even color on your legs. It mimics the look of pantyhose, so you feel like you've got a little something on your leg. Self-tanners help with that, but again, there's a lot of leg makeup out there to take care of that. The only thing the leg makeup won't do is compress and help with veins and make you lose 10 pounds in, you know, one try on. Anyway, if they could figure that one out, that would be great. My next question, do you have a holy grail lipstick or lip gloss? I always carry with me Lipstick Queen's Nude Metal. And it's a very light colored lipstick. In fact, well, it's in my purse, but it's a nude with a little bit of a gold sparkle to it. And I love it because I can wear it on top of any lipstick. I can wear it by itself, and it's just a great, versatile, pretty color. So that's probably my favorite as a standalone and even as a topper. I do love Huda Beauty's Trendsetter and Bombshell worn together. It's a lip stain, so it's a matte type of a look. It's nude, and it's just the perfect nude for me. And so no matter what I'm wearing, if I put that on, I always feel like, you know, I've got my game face on, and I'm not worried about how does this lip color look, and is it too strong, too whatever. So anyway, those are my favorites. They're always in my makeup bag, and I can just rely on them for anything. What is your favorite time with family? Also, since your schedule is a little different working at night, how do you handle dinner schedule with your family? My favorite time with family, actually, I love having the kids alone in my car. I find that alone time in the car is the most precious and priceless time because, as you know, if you have junior high age, teenage kids, I mean, it is all about the friends and going out and doing stuff, and having any one-on-one time is really tricky. And sometimes, you know, the dinner time conversations can be a little bit chaotic and a little here and a little there. But that one-on-one time with the children in the car, they are my captive audience, and I get to ask questions and engage and get a little bit deeper in their lives, and I love that time. I love it, I love it, I love it. So I you know, dropping off my son and picking him up from school to me is the absolute best. We talk about the craziest things. He asks me questions. He knows that he can go there with me, just like my mom granted that freedom with me. I want him to feel open and to ask me questions about anything, and I won't, you know, shut it down and say, well, that's inappropriate. You know, we'll discuss everything, and we'll discuss it in an appropriate way for his age level. But that time with family, to me, is the absolute best. And then how do I handle the dinner schedule with the family? Yes, I get home from work at about 7 o'clock, and I've got to leave around 8:30. So dinner time is very quick. I don't have time to cook. If I come home at 7, by the time I cook, dinner's at 8, and it's a mad scramble. So oftentimes we'll order in or get some help in that area. But yes, dinner for me is about an hour and a half in between the newscasts at night, and I try to pack in as much time with the kiddos as I can, help with homework, and, you know, meet the need during that crazy hour and a half. Next question. Everything you would say or recommend to your 20-something self? That's a great question. And that would be, Dominique, be patient. Things have to happen at the right time. You know, when you're young, you're impatient, you want everything to happen like now. And there is a pace and a process, and all of it serves a purpose. And you don't realize that until you're away from it, until you're once removed. You get to look back, as they say, hindsight is 20/20, and you understand why things had to happen the way they did, and why there was that process, and why things were so uncomfortable. So if I were looking back at my 20-year-old self, I'd say, be patient and realize that it's someone else's timing and not yours. Next question. Who is your favorite artist, writer, and musician? And when do you plan to retire from your job, and what are you going to do? Great questions. So we have some artwork in our house from a gentleman out of San Antonio. His name is Franco Mondini Ruiz. Great artist, unusual stuff. We love his work, and he comes to Houston all the time, and every time we always seem to gobble up a few pieces. Music-wise, I'm all over the map. I love jazz, I love bossa nova, I love flamenco guitar. So I can't really say I have a favorite artist per se. I have a lot of genres that I like. Of course, the 80s music always speaks to me because that was my high school time, and I know every song and every lyric that was from that era. So I love that kind of music. When do I plan on retiring from my job? I still have a few more years in me. But there is an end game, and what I plan on doing is traveling a lot with my husband. We both work really, really hard, and there's a lot that we want to see out there. And of course, there's YouTube, and that will continue on as well. Best haircuts for fine thinning hair. So here's the thing. Layers will take away thickness and heaviness, and blunt cuts will make hair look thicker. So if you're dealing with thinner hair, I will encourage you to go a little bit more blunt. A blunt bob is good. Anything shoulder length and above will add some thickness as well. Bangs also help. People always say, your hair is so thick, and it's not. I have fine hair, but a lot of it. And certain haircuts will really help accentuate that. But bobs tend to help, and bangs tend to help. So, maybe something like this. Just saying. How to give teenagers limits when it comes to going out with whom and so on. Today's teens find it normal to drink too much and change crushes at every party. How do you guys limit yours? We can't control what happens outside the house. We can only hope that we have instilled values, and I think this is where self-esteem comes into play, that word that seems to be a thread through a lot of these subjects. If children have self-esteem and self-worth, they are not going to want to self-destruct. They will have a sense of value and a sense of self-preservation. So having children feel healthy and good about themselves, and realizing that they are a valuable vessel, that their body is, their mind is, and that is something to be protected and preserved, will hopefully lead to good judgment out of the house. With changing crushes every day, kids these days, it's just so different. When I grew up, I had a steady boyfriend. We dated for 1.5 years. He'd come to the house. We'd go out to eat. We'd go to restaurants, to movies or whatever. Kids just don't seem to do that anymore. They run in packs. The girls go in a pack, the boys go in a pack. They all kind of meet up and hook up. And I feel a little sad for them because there's a lack of intimacy. There's a lack of one-on-one communication that's taking place. And, maybe it happens later for them in college. I think it does. But their high school experience is so different from my high school experience. And I don't necessarily know if it's a good thing. How do you keep the romance in your marriage? Good question. Very important, by the way. When you and your husband first met, you were a couple. And so there was a lot of focus on the couple. And what happens is, as we stay together and we become parents and we're in our careers, we tend to become more of a unit that is managing things, and it tends to become more of like a business. And you don't want your marriage to be a business, because then you lose sight of what it was that brought you together in the first place. And while it's important to run a household, to run the family, to have a vision and a plan and a protocol, at the same time, you're still a man and a woman, and there are those needs that have to be met. So keeping the romance in the marriage is so important, and it's all about intimacy and the communication of intimacy. So what my husband and I will do is we will send each other sweet text messages, loving text messages. We'll set up a date night with each other, something to look forward to. We will prioritize physical intimacy, making love. When you are that connected to your spouse, it's amazing how that level of intimacy and that level of touch brings you back to where it all began. And it's so important to prioritize it. And if you have to schedule it, then you schedule it, but you make it happen, because we are humans, and humans are meant to love. We are meant to be affectionate. We are meant to connect. So let's not lose sight of how important that is. And that's what makes a healthy marriage. And a healthy marriage is a model for our children so that they can look up to it and try to emulate it in their lives. Sunscreen, and how and when to use with makeup and without feeling greasy. Hold on, let me grab a product that I want to show you. Okay, I love this. It's by Color Science, Sun Forgettable Brush On Sunscreen, but it's a brush and you dip it like this and the powder comes out and you can sunscreen your face and your chest and you don't get greasy, and you can use this as a base underneath makeup, all of that. I'm with you. I cannot stand greasy, gooey sunscreen and then trying to put on makeup and everything smears and smudges. So this powder, and it even comes in skin color. So this has been really, really great for that. This is a good question. You've been at KPRC your entire career. What has kept you there for so long? If other offers and opportunities have come along, how did you decide to stay there? How do you keep growing and improving in your profession when you seem to be at the top of your game? Interesting question, and there are quite a few reasons as to why I chose to stay. Yes, initially I had big goals and big dreams, New York, LA, national news, Today Show type format. But here's what happens in my line of work. You are signed to contracts, and contracts can last 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, and on. And when you are operating under that contract, you cannot look for work outside until you're toward the end of that contract. And it really depends on what else is out there during that time. There are these windows where you're available. And maybe your dream job isn't available during your window. And you've got to figure out then what is the best thing to do at that time. Now, what I have found, and this is true in local news, the more time you spend in a local market, the more equity you have in that market. The audience has a relationship with you and a connection with you. You've built up a level of professionalism and trust with your bosses. And so your value is higher, and therefore you're rewarded for that. So I found as I stayed in my hometown, my contracts kept getting better, salaries got better, perks got better, and then also, we're not just careers, but we also want to have marriages, families, children, and priorities change. You want to live in a place where you can raise a family where you feel that's best. And I grew up in Houston. I love Houston. It's been a wonderful place to raise our family. All of these things factor into your decision making. So for a variety of reasons, staying here turned out to be the best decision for me, both professionally and personally. So I'm very, very happy that I did. And then how to stay kind of in the game, because I've been at this now since 1994, so 24 years. I don't believe in complacency. I believe there are areas where we can always work and improve, and I'm always looking for that. So if you seek excellence, there's no such thing as perfection, but if you seek excellence in your level of work, there's always something to do in your work. So I just encourage you to always keep climbing that ladder and reaching for that next step. I admire your work and you so much. Thank you. How do you maintain your feminine energy, femininity, when you are a force to be reckoned with? Well, I believe in being professional, but at the same time, I am still a woman and I will not negate who I am. And at the same time, when I am at work, I have a line. I do not bring personal problems to work. I do not talk about any of that with colleagues or coworkers because I believe in being professional and being taken seriously. There's a time and place for everything. There's a time and place to talk about menopause and hormone problems and kid problems and whatever, but work isn't the place. I want to be respected. I want to be professional. So I know the line that shouldn't be crossed, but at the same time, I am a woman. I like dresses and I like to have doors open for me, and I will not stop my husband from doing so. The next one, what is the one thing that your husband does that drives you crazy and not in a good way? Okay, Okay, my husband is the king of pocket dialing. I don't know how he does it, but he does it often and to everybody. And so sometimes I'll get a 3-minute voicemail from my husband of him just driving in the car, or of him having a conversation with somebody else. And I will listen in because sometimes it can be very funny and he doesn't realize it. But yes, he's the king of pocket dialing, and that's what he does that drives me crazy. And you know what? If that's it, how lucky am I? Next up. Love my cosmetic processes and reasonable procedures, but I often wrestle with telling my granddaughters they are beautiful just like they are while I am slathering myself in lotions and potions and makeup. Any suggestions on how to handle this issue, and what do you tell the young women you influence daily? You know what? Your granddaughters are beautiful just as they are. Everybody is beautiful just as they are. Whatever that are is. Now, I have always felt that we all walk our own personal walks and journeys. And this goes back to, again, this kind of hypercritical, hyper-judgmental society that we now live in, where everybody feels that they have a voice in your walk and your journey. My feeling is that you don't owe anybody an explanation or an apology or a justification for why you do what you do or don't do what you do. I mean, for instance, you know, some women will let their gray hair come in and some women will choose to color their hair. Do we judge the woman who colors because she chooses to do so? We have to have a level of respect for what it is that a person wants to do. I have always said that all of this stuff, whether it is hair color, makeup, injections, cosmetic surgery, you know, any of it, none of it changes how we see and feel about ourselves. So for me, the real work that takes place is the work within to create a healthy, functional self, to create a self that is aware, a self that is fulfilled, a self that is healthy and well. And whatever choice is made beyond that is a personal choice. All of these things won't fix a broken self. So if that's the reason for all of it, then there's inward looking and work to be done. But it is a personal journey. And so you tell your grandchildren that they are beautiful just as they are. And you, my dear friend, are beautiful just as you are. How do you deal with change, loss, and grief? All of those things are inevitable in life, and so your word was already in there, deal. We must deal, and we all have different ways of doing that. My way of doing that is really pressing into my faith, praying about it, trusting God in that walk, in that journey, allowing myself to feel, allowing myself to grieve, knowing I'm going to have good days and bad days. But these things must happen, and we cannot let them set us back in our journey, stall us, or prevent us from moving forward, because I truly believe that that's not God's plan. What to do with a woman's neck? Ring it! You know, once upon a time, it was either anti-wrinkle cream or a facelift, and there was nothing in between. These days, there are about 100 different steps in between. So as I mentioned, it's a personal journey. If your neck is bugging you, I'm sure you can find something to help with the situation. But yeah, that's the #1 complaint from women is the neck. It can be so frustrating. So, you know, I don't know what to say. Like I said, there are a million different procedures to help tighten and stimulate collagen and do all of that. So if it's really, really bugging you, go explore and see what's out there for you. My next one, what are your thoughts on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy? I do use it, and I have been for quite some time. Hormone replacement, though, is like playing whack-a-mole, because sometimes you're spot on, and then sometimes you feel as if everything has bottomed out, which is how hormones work. They change and they fluctuate, and your needs change and fluctuate all the time. So it's a managed journey, one between you and your healthcare provider. There needs to be open, honest discussion about your needs and desires, not just short-term, but also long-term, because the goal of HRT is to prevent illness also down the road and not just manage hot flashes and night sweats. A dear friend of mine is on YouTube, Barbie Taylor. Her YouTube channel is Menopause Taylor. She's a doctor from Houston. She's one of my nearest and dearest. If you have any questions about menopause, I encourage you to go to her channel because that's all she does. And she breaks it down in such a way that's informative and helpful. So I can't encourage that enough. What's your favorite drink, food, and dessert? My favorite drink is coffee. My favorite food is seafood, and I love crawfish and crabs. And my favorite dessert is wedding cake. Not necessarily in that order. Did you make straight A's at school all the time? Is there anything you felt was your worst subject? I was not a straight A student. I was a straight B student. I was average, except for my television classes and communications. Those were A's because that's where my passion was. My worst subject, actually, this is so funny. I have a recurring nightmare that I find out that I actually have not graduated from the University of Houston. I still have 3 hours left, and it's in some history and government class, and I have to take it in order to graduate. And I wake up in a cold sweat, just dying. Why do I still have that dream? Okay. Does your mom live close to you? Will she ever live with you? Aging parent concerns are a huge issue for us baby boomers. It's true. My mother is all of 3-4 miles away. My mother-in-law is 2 miles away. We have them close to us for that reason. What the needs and care issues will be down the road, we don't know. They're both independent women, and we're grateful for that. But we are prepared for when that may not be the case. And that's why we keep them close, because we are ultimately their caretakers, and we want that journey to be comfortable for everybody. What is the one piece of advice you would give somebody? That one piece, I guess, would be to trust your inner voice, that sixth sense, or as some would say, God speaking to you from within. Anytime I've made a mistake in my life is when I have gone against that inner voice that harps and pecks like a nagging wife. And it's telling me, don't do this or do this. You feel it. You feel this overwhelming sense. Trust it. Trust that voice. When I do, I'm going in the right direction, and when I don't, I'm not. So listen deep. Do you take supplements on a daily basis, and if so, which ones? That is a whole video in and of itself. Yes, I'm a firm believer in taking supplements. I take a variety. I can't even get into all the supplements that I take, but I will say this. I truly believe that out of all of them, vitamin D is probably the most important. Practically everybody is deficient in vitamin D, and we also don't spend as much time in the sun, and we're in sunscreen, so we're even limiting our vitamin D absorption, and we need it for so many reasons, health reasons, disease prevention, all of that. I take about 5,000 to 10,000 IUs of vitamin D every day, along with K2. One of my best resources for vitamins is Dr. Mercola, Mercola.com. I've mentioned his site on this channel before. I find him very, very helpful when it comes to all things health and wellness. Have you ever had to deal with sleep issues? I'm almost 59 and lack of sleep has been a problem for years. Yes, yes, yes. Hormones, hormones. That's my number one thing is the sleep disruption. And I do a combination of melatonin and 5-HTP and tryptophan, and I have a supplement that has all of that together, and that helps me. It definitely takes the edge off. But I find that minimizing sugar, minimizing alcohol, and minimizing stress has a huge impact on my sleep quality. How to feel comfortable, we're almost at the end, by the way. How to feel comfortable in your own skin and accept your ever-changing 50-something-year-old body and face when you feel your appearance is all you have left. Also, how to convince yourself you are more than your appearance. You are more than your appearance. Look, no matter how hard we stay on our diet, how much we exercising, the inevitable is skin is going to sag. It's going to move. Things are going to happen that we just can't control. And so there has to be a level of acceptance for that, or else what's the alternative? Live the second 50 years of your life in misery? Not an option. And so the focus cannot just be on the shell. There is so much more that makes us who we are. Cultivate passions, cultivate creativity, cultivate other things that let you celebrate your character and your abilities, which are far more important than the external. And also, I think if your viewpoint is, I'm going to eat right and exercise because I know it's good for me, it's going to provide longevity, it's going to provide disease prevention, then your shift has also gone to a better place as well. And it's not just about preserving something that you cannot maintain, but it goes into maintaining something that you can preserve. I'd like to know if you've ever considered doing a how-to book on style and makeup, and have you ever thought of creating your own cosmetic line? Yes and yes. I have thought about all these things. I just need the time to investigate. So who knows what's coming down the pike later on. But yes, these are things that I definitely think about. Last question, how do you keep your butt from sliding into the back of your thighs? Squats, lunges, squats, squats, more squats, and cardio. The end. Thank you so much for all of your questions. Wow, did we cover a wide variety of subjects here. Hope you got some of the answers that you were looking for, but most importantly, let me thank you for taking the time to reach out to me and share what it is that you wanted to know. I apologize. There were so many questions that I didn't get to and things that I'd love to answer. So I'm hoping in future videos we'll be able to tackle those. But in the meantime, I appreciate you. I appreciate the things that you're wanting to know. I can tell that you're thinking deep and you've got some big things on your mind, and it's important that we talk about those things and share them together. So please, as always, be bold, be blessed in your walk in this life. And I will see you next week at 1 o'clock on Thursday.